Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
Fuego here.
And today we're doing a movie review of a very recent release of a movie called Tales of Halloween.
Every year on Halloween, this town goes batshit crazy.
Trick or treat.
Slightest idea what you're dealing with.
If you guys haven't heard of it, it's a really cool horror anthology movie, which Jaime is going to tell you all about right now.
Yeah, so you basically have 10 different directors, including like Dog Soldiers Neil Marshall, the list goes on, and it's a very trick-or-treat kind of approach where all the tales interlocked, and they're going to be a little smaller than what you saw in that particular Dorothy incarnation, which was amazing, and we're awaiting a sequel of that.
Mm-hmm.
This is very much within that vein, at least, and there's going to be smaller segments, smaller chunks of all these different things happening one scary Halloween night.
What we're going to do is, since it's a collection of 10 stories, we're going to go ahead and just take the time and go through each one. So the first one is a short film called Sweet Tooth, directed by Dave Parker. Now, this one was really cool. This basically is about a babysitter and her boyfriend who are trying to scare the kid that she's babysitting by telling him a story about a gruesome Halloween night character named Sweet Tooth that stalks from household to household trying to trick-or-treat for candy, and if you don't share your candy, then very terrible things will befall you. And then...
yeah, it's all some kid who essentially had his parents eat all of his candy and never let him trick-or-treat, and eat all of his candy even when they would let him trick-or-treat. He was none too happy about that, especially when he took his first bite of candy, and it just gets worse from there. We can't really divulge what happens.
Yeah, we don't want to ruin it.
It's pretty gross-tastic.
It was really cool, though. It ended up being one of my favorites of the entire anthology, we should say.
Yeah, possibly my favorite.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a really good way to rope me in for the whole anthology. So that's pretty much all we can say about Sweet Tooth. Jaime, what was film number 2?
The Night Billy Raised Hell. So there's this kid and he's about to egg a house, which I guess is, TPing, egging houses, stuff like that. That's pretty commonplace Halloween fare. But his older sister and presumably like her boyfriend or something start egging him on about how what he's doing is not exactly right. Not that cool, but nonetheless, when he's about to do it, he finds out it's even worse than he expected because he's brought in by the owner of that house, and he goes and gets shown what some real Halloween prankery is all about, and there's a very funny twist when you find out what has actually happened with the small kid at the end, and but some serious havoc is real, right, Cecil?
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is basically what if the prank E from the year after year attacks on Halloween night by teenagers gets to have his revenge on all of the prankers.
Oh yeah.
That's basically what this one was about. It was pretty middle of the road for me.
It was more funny than serious.
Right. It was definitely more funny than serious. It was a little over the top at times, but it was still interesting enough, and it was, a worthy addition to the anthology in my opinion.
Yeah. Exactly right. It was good for a laugh, and let's move on to the next one, I'd say.
All right. The next short in the film is entitled Trick, and this one is basically about a group of young adults headed up by Tiffany Shepis, who has appeared right here on this channel. If you check it out, you can look for her station ID in our past episodes. She's a really cool chick.
Yeah, that's right. She was one of the faded ones on the couch in this one, right?
Yep, absolutely. She was getting drunk and having fun with her friends on Halloween night, just taking turns handing out candy, when all of a sudden, when her boyfriend goes to the door to basically answer the call of Halloween, he finds a little bit more than he bargained for. A little child decides to shank him right there in the doorway. And
Schnickty.
Yep, and
Wolverine
he basically
style.
goes back, and the friends start scrambling to see about getting him help, and all of a sudden, they are attacked by something quite unexpected. We won't say exactly what, because that might ruin the surprise of the movie, but besides that surprise, there's another surprise towards the end of this little film.
And another surprise after the surprise.
Yep, absolutely. And they actually give a good amount of depth to this particular story. So Trick, well, wasn't my favorite. It was still up there in the I'm glad I watched it category.
Yeah, it still gave some weight to it that me as a viewer initially, I hadn't taken attention to. And so, yeah, Cecil brought that to my interest. And I was like, okay, this was even deeper and better than I expected. So, yeah, we can't divulge too much, but yeah, it's a worthy entry in this and allows to just keep the mood, you know, and it's almost like they have a ping pong at this point in the film where it starts serious and then there's something funnier and then we're back to seriousness in this segment.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I completely agree. And what's the next film on the list, Jaime?
So yeah, that next entry is The Weak and the Wicked. This is number 4, and you have this, well, you don't realize until a little bit later, but there's somebody younger who has been really just tormented terribly by almost like a street gang, and one of the chicks is rocking like a Dia de los Muertos, like Day of the Dead type makeup thing, and yeah, they're apparently kids that when they were younger were originally wreaking havoc, and now they have grown to do it at a
much higher level.
Full adult age, and they've cranked it to 11, right, Cecil?
Yeah, absolutely. You could say that, and it's cool because they tie the looks together from them as little kids to when they're now young adults wreaking havoc. They have still similar aesthetics as to what they wore and everything like that when they were younger.
Believable. Yeah.
But the cool thing about this one is, again, sort of a twist towards the end where you find out that all is not what it seems, and this trio of troublemakers has bitten off a bit more than they can chew in this particular instance.
A chewy chomp.
And they get confronted by something that they were not expecting. We'll just say that.
Yeah, I wish we could say more because it's very good. This is actually one of the best segments I thought of the
I agree.
The whole movie.
This had a really cool idea, really cool execution, and a particularly funny last moment. It was the one I remember the whole theater sort of giggling after the last frame rolled.
So yeah, The Weak and the Wicked along with Sweet Tooth, I'd say probably the two best segments of the first half of this film, right?
Yeah, definitely they're up there. Now let's move on to the 5th installment in this anthology, and that was the Grinning Ghost, which this is actually a really cool sort of story based on an ancient Greek mythology, I believe is where it's from. They actually talk about it at the beginning where there was a god that was sent to Hades and was given the opportunity to rescue someone, another god, and they basically just had to abide by one rule, which is do not turn around and look back, otherwise the person will not be able to leave hell after all. And so basically this story basically follows such a formula where it's sort of a Bloody Mary mixed with that story. So there's a ghost.
Biggie Smalls.
If you basically hear this cackling of a woman as you're walking alone, do not turn around because you will not like what you see. And
we're talking some Medusa type shizzle, man.
Exactly. So can you resist the urge to do so? Now this one was a really well executed one. This one had the horror legend Lin Shaye, who has been in tons of horror movies, including
there's
most
something
recently,
about Mary where she very scarily showed her boobicles.
True, but I'm thinking more of the Insidious trilogy that she played a huge role in. So
I'm glad you remembered her name because I couldn't.
Oh yeah, Lin Shaye. She's a great actress.
She's tremendous.
Yeah. So this was
she
no
gave
surprise.
credibility to this right off the bat, I'd say.
Yep, absolutely. So what did you like about this one?
I love that she set the eerie tone. I love the fact that her younger daughter was resistant and was just like, it should have been well known when she encounters certain things. I'm not going to mention what because it's, kind of, not up to spoilerific territory, but when certain things started happening, I think she should have really taken her mother's consideration and care into account a little bit more so.
Yeah.
Doesn't say what her fate is.
It's just it's one of those things where I'm sure a lot of the audience will be able to relate with what happens.
Totally.
So that covers that one, the Grinning Ghost, you guys. Jaime, what was next?
We have Ding Dong, and this one was about as enticing as a dong to me, I must say. It was really, really bad. It was not very amusing. It tried to be, though. There was almost like a comedic over-the-topness. And so there's this wife in this film whose husband is just starting to realize how child hungry she is, and he thought maybe she just had baby fever, but I think it's a little bit worse than that, as you slowly determined in the film.
This one was a little more abstract than some of the other films.
Some of the cuts and stuff they did was really weird.
It was really weird and wild, and, you know, maybe some people liked it. This one sort of rubbed me the wrong way. I wasn't a huge fan of this one. Every anthology has its ups and downs, and this was definitely one of the lower points, unfortunately. Probably my least favorite of the whole bunch. But
I think so too, man. I mean, just the dynamic between the two, I felt so bad for the guy, you know, and even beyond that, it was just like, you know, the interplay, the acting was just very subpar. And then, although they were tying it in with some of the trick-or-treaters you see at the door and stuff, which, you know, maybe this was filler at the end of the day, but it did serve to proceed the story forward because all of these tales interlock. So,
in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, not mildly in some instances.
Yeah, not
like
nearly to the extent of some other good anthologies we've spoken about. So,
Trick or Treat.
Yeah, exactly. So, next up is the short film This Means War, which stars comedy legend Dana Gould opposite the young man who I know as the guy from Independence Day.
And Donnie Darko.
And Donnie Darko, the young man. I apologize for not knowing the name off the top of my head, but he's a good actor, and it was fun to see him pop up in this role. But basically, Dana Gould plays a old school horror man who sets up a haunted house every year with real old school sort of decorations, you know, Frankenstein-y kind of stuff, not hugely
vintage
gory.
at this
Vintage, exactly. And then all of a sudden, this young whippersnapperish guy, you know, rocker, metalhead shows up and moves in right across the street and sets up his haunted house, which is way more death metal and crazy gore and face paint on everyone and loud music blaring.
I know sometimes we take it to the extreme, my friend, and we're a little rude about it.
Yeah, that happened in this case, and so Dana Gould goes to confront him, and basically the rest of the movie plays out with a pretty funny fight throughout the rest of the film.
Yeah,
they
kind
go
of a
at
cat
it.
and mouse of the decorations type thing.
Yeah, it's like a Tom and Jerry, live-action Tom and Jerry almost.
Truly.
You know?
Yeah, it is one of the sillier ones, as I mentioned, you know, how they're kind of flip-flopping the tone of these and, you know, make it scary and just kind of like, and then get back to the comedic aspect. And this one definitely gets back there. I kept wanting to call the guy Lou Diamond Phillips, for God's sake, which is dumb on my part. So yeah, he was an amusing opposition to the other old school guy, I must say.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Jaime, what was next?
So yeah, next up we have the most pure serial killer kind of slasher type thing, and you had to have one of those in this because they have so many different genres represented in this particular short film.
Oh, but was it just that?
No, it evolved into something much bigger than that. There was actually almost like an X-Files type tinge to it. So just when you think a slasher guy, like a big mutated, I don't know, maybe a cross between Jason and Hatchet.
Victor
Exactly.
Crowley.
Yeah, exactly right. So you have this guy who's almost a cross between both of those characters, and he's dispatching his final victim, but something happens. There is a saucer above this old wooden cabin, and
flying saucer variety.
Yes. Yeah, exactly, of the flying saucer variety. And since, you know, Cecil was actually much bigger into this episode than I particularly was, I'm going to let him gush about it for a moment.
Yeah, so basically the killer takes out his final victim, and the alien descends from the flying saucer, and it's this little minuscule claymation alien character that just keeps saying trick or treat, and the serial killer basically deals with it for a second and then deals with it no more. And then from that point, without spoiling too much, the tables are turned and the massive scary serial killer becomes the damsel in distress.
Yeah, despite the size of this small little thing, and you know, Cecil liked it a lot more than me, but
I did.
Still
it was definitely a mix of Friday the 13th type thing. A little bit of Tucker and Dale versus Evil, along with a lot of Army of Darkness. There was a big Evil Dead vibe in there too.
Yeah,
and
just the sensibilities of the silliness once it came.
That, and then a particular, the look of a particular character that comes back that had a very Evil Dead vibe. So, yeah, I dug the heck out of Friday the 31st. This was very enjoyable. It's my second favorite behind Sweet Tooth for sure. I dug the hell out of this one.
Interesting. Very cool.
And for the next one, and my final one, we are going to be talking about the Ransom of Rusty Rex. And basically this one is all about two, looks like sort of sub-level criminals, one of which played by a very recognizable face in Sam Witwer, who played the vampire role in the American remake of the BBC show Being Human. And he actually played the role for 4 years in the American show, maybe 5 actually, but I believe it was just 4, and I dug both series. And
so that was where there was one guy who was a werewolf, one guy who was a vampire,
and a girl was a ghost, exactly, and they were all roommates. So
nice, yeah.
It was the trials and tribulations of that. So I was partial to seeing this guy pop up on screen. These 2 low-level criminals plan to kidnap the son of a really rich guy in California, and when they execute their plan, they think it's gone easier than they thought it would, but then when they try and make the ransom call, they get an unexpected response from the father of this little boy.
It's more so like John Landis, the legendary director, who, it's funny, there's a few big-time directors who make an appearance in this, not behind the camera, but in front of it, and Landis being the most notable, and he's just like, well, I can't tell you what he says because, you know, it's a non-spoilerific, but just his appearance alone adds validity to this and really ups the material, and it's quite a bit of a twist.
Rest assured, the robbers get more than they bargained for when they
from
made
both
this
father and
particular
son.
kidnapping. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was one I really appreciated as well, Jaime. So Jaime, what was the final film in this fantastic new anthology?
Yeah, so the final one is actually going to be by probably the biggest director, at least name-wise, within the horror community, Mr. Neil Marshall, who did Dog Soldiers most notably. And yeah, this one is called Bad Seed, and we're talking about pumpkin seeds here. In this particular case, there is a particular variety of, I don't know if it's a mutated pumpkin or what the deal is with this thing. Genetically modified.
GMO.
That's what it was. Yes, GMO. Damn you, I knew you were going to poison us eventually.
So yeah, basically a very specially raised pumpkin gets carved for Halloween, and little do they know that these very special properties cause the pumpkin to turn on the carver.
Yeah, and we're talking start chowing them down, and it happens to the guy who carves it initially, happens to a trick-or-treater kid, and we can't say what else transpires.
Evil, killer, mobile pumpkin.
Yeah.
Jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah, moving around with no legs or arms or anything like that. We're talking just wiggling around in that little circular,
vines
butt face
creeping
of it.
around,
Yeah, pretty insane. And I'd say one of the goriest ones in the entire 10
One of the goriest
segments,
ones.
right?
And it was kind of silly. For sure, there was the silliness to it, but it was fun
give
silly.
me what I wanted.
It was fun silly, I will say. So I appreciated this one as well. So what
it was
about
at the
you?
tops.
Yeah.
I'd say it was on the top side of the 5. You know, it wasn't as good as the Sweet Tooth or some of the others, but it was one of the positive ones. It was one that I will remember distinctively. That's for sure.
Absolutely. So I think that pretty much covers it, you guys. We went through all 10 of the shorts, and we think that overall it's worth your time to go check this one out. Yeah. Whether you can catch it in a local showing at an independent theater, or if you can just watch it on VOD, it's worth your time. Tales of Halloween. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's not going to bite on the ankles of Trick or Treat or anything like that. I know, cup the statue, as they like to say, but yeah, it's still a worthy entry and better than most, and I think that it aspired well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely delivered as far as horror anthologies, especially independent ones, go. It was very worth our time. So check it out, you guys. Tales of Halloween. Thanks for watching our review. I've been Cecil Laird.
I mean, Fuego here. Gracias.
And remember, stay scared.